Alright, good morning everyone. Mabuhay, annyeonghaseyo, and welcome to the 10th Philippine Korean Studies Symposium. I am Marco Angulo from the Department of Linguistics, and I will be your moderator for the first part of today's event. For more than a decade, we have witnessed how PKSS has been able to evolve, adapting to various and drastic changes in terms of research teams, formats, and platforms. We are delighted to welcome our participants this year. This year's PKSS, under the theme A Decade of Korean Studies in the Philippines, a glance at the past, a gaze at the present, a glimpse of the future, is co-organized by the UP Korean Research Center and the UP Department of Linguistics in partnership with UP Center for International Studies and Korea Copyright Protection Agency. This event is also sponsored by the Korea Foundation. First, let's get to know a bit more about our organizers. On April 27, 2016, the University of the Philippines launched the Korea Research Center, aiming to provide Filipino scholars and researchers with opportunities to widen their interest in Korean studies. The center hopes to be a venue for students and professionals to produce meaningful comparative research and to promote collaborative partnerships among Korean and Philippine institutions. The center serves as a university-wide hub across UP constituent universities in order to help promote and develop Korean studies and sponsors inter-college research and educational activities, as well as facilitates the training of the next generation of Koreanists in the country. The UP Department of Linguistics is an academic institution under the College of Social Sciences and Philosophy, which is distinctly focused on the scientific study, preservation, and promotion of Philippine languages and dialects through teaching, archiving, research, and publication. It is also mandated to use its research expertise to address language issues in the country. Aside from Philippine linguistics, the department is also recognized as an expert in the teaching of the national languages of Asia. It is designated as a center of excellence in foreign languages by the Philippines Commission on Higher Education. We also wish to thank our followers and supporters and wish to express our gratitude in making events such as this happen. And to formally begin our program, let us welcome to the stage the Vice President Leo Cobillan of UP Office of Vice President for Academic Affairs for the welcome remarks.
Thank you and good morning everyone. Honorable Sung Ho-Koo, yes, the Second Secretary of the Embassy of the Republic of Korea. We have our panelists, Associate Professor Kyung Kim from the University of North Korean Studies. We have also Dr. Jun Yoon Lee, yes, from the Ritsumikan University. And of course, we have our director, Kim Min Bae from UP-KRC, as well as Chair Cristina Gallego from the linguistics. And of course, I'd like to also acknowledge all the researchers that will be presenting to this symposium. And first, let me start by saying that the university, as part of its internationalization, we have this international student exchange. And of course, we encourage our students to take universities all over the world to have their student exchange program. But over the last few years, most of them, they would always speak Korean. So anyway, I think we need to put some limits now because we want a variety. They have to go to Europe, they have to go to other universities. So in a way, it really speaks in terms of how your cultural exports, as we say, is it the Hallyu, the Korean way, where the music, the books, the TV dramas and films, how this impact society, I mean the world. And if I understand, is it a deliberate strategy, or it's really a phenomenon in terms of how, especially although it's worldwide, but for Filipinos, it is how we share our culture, the commonalities in our culture. And this symposium would actually want to explore how this impact, and also the influence in terms of the broader aspects like political, economic, and historical. And these are really this is really what UP Korea Research Center, the organizer of the symposium, has been committed since its establishment nearly a decade ago, to bring light the shared histories and sense of connection to make Korean studies important, not only for the Philippines but also for the broader region. Actually, we even have another project, and I think it's a project of the embassy, where you have a Korean corner in the library. We haven't, because we are renovating the library, so we haven't really started it again. But we are also working with how we could also expose our students to the different culture, to these different international corners of the library, where we can give them the expose them to the different books, available books, and also media materials for them. So what makes this symposium particularly remarkable is the wide range of topics it covers, analyzed through the different lenses. So we have philosophy, cultural studies, religion, gender, and literature, while drawing on both theory and practice. We are delighted at the creativity and interdisciplinary approaches of all the presenters in their chosen topics, and equally pleased by the enthusiasm of you, our local and international scholars that are here to present. The fact that we have now reached the 10th edition, this is the 10th edition of the symposium, only shows the vibrant landscape of the Philippine Korean studies. And there's been so much to explore and cover and understand in this dynamic field. Actually, we also want, maybe the Philippines would also want to benchmark how you are actually doing it. So in a way, recently the Philippines, I think the world is more of looking at it in terms of the cuisine, how other cultures are recognizing or appreciating the Filipino cuisine, and hopefully as part of a globe, how we look at how we can make Philippines more global. People looking to learn from you. On behalf of the UP, I'd like to express my sincerest gratitude to Ambassador Sang Wadi, the Embassy of the Republic of Korea, represented by its Secretary, Ambassador Maria Teresa Dizon de Vega, for the Embassy of the Republic of the Philippines in Korea, for their unwavering support to the mission and goals of UP through the UP-KRC. With strong support from government, we can continue academic collaboration between our nations and deepen dialogue, research, and cultural exchange. We also thank to our keynote speakers, also to the UP Korea Research Center in the UP Department of Linguistics as co-conveners of this event. The symposium has also been made possible through the generous support of the Korea Foundation in the Philippines. So with this, I'd like to extend my warmest welcome to all of you to the 10th Philippine Korean Studies Symposium, and wish you a productive and enriching exchange of insights. Thank you and good morning.
All right, thank you so much, Vice President Rubia. And now, on behalf of the Korean Embassy in the Philippines, we are honored to have Secretary Ho Sung-ho, who is with us to present Korean Ambassador Lee Sang-hwa of the Embassy of the Republic of Korea in the Philippines. Let's all welcome Secretary Ho.
Honorable Vice President Dr. Leo Komleo, and faculty members and students of UP and distinguished guests. Good morning. It's an honor and privilege to be here at this wonderful event. After 10 years, the Philippine Korean Studies Symposium continues to be a significant venue for dialogue, fostering deeper insights into the rich and multifaceted relationship between our two countries. I'd like to extend my gratitude to Dr. Kyung Kim, Director of the UP Korea Research Center, for this initiative and her dedication to advancing Korean studies in the Philippines. As the #1 university in the Philippines, UP has always been a leader in knowledge gathering and sharing. As we explore our shared history and future prospects, Korean studies continues to serve as a vital bridge for mutual understanding, respect, collaboration. Looking ahead, I am optimistic that Korean studies in the Philippines will expand in both scope and significance. Strengthening academic institutions and partnerships will empower the next generation of the Filipino scholars to deepen their knowledge on Korea and further enrich our diplomatic and cultural ties. I wish the 10th Philippine Korean Studies Symposium a great success. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, Secretary Ko. And next, we are very happy to receive a message from Her Excellency Ambassador Maria Teresa Dizon de Vega, although she will not be able to join us today, but she sent us her message for our event today. Allow me to read her message to you. Congratulatory remarks of Philippine Ambassador to Korea, Teresa Dizon de Vega, for the opening program of the 10th Philippine Korean Studies Symposium, 28th of April 2025. UP Vice President for Academic Affairs, Leo Cubillan, Dr. Cristina Gallego, Chairperson, UP Department of Linguistics, Dr. Kim Song-yong, University of North Korean Studies, His Excellency Ambassador Lee Sang-pa, Dr. Kyung Kim, UP Korea Research Center, distinguished speakers and participants. Mabuhay, annyeonghaseyo. I convey warmest congratulations to the organizers of the 10th Philippine Korean Studies Symposium, a significant milestone for all those committed to fostering deeper understanding between the Philippines and Korea. Over the past decades, the Philippines and Korea have built a strong and enduring relationship rooted in shared sacrifices, vibrant cultural exchanges, and a mutual commitment to progress and peace. From the camaraderie forged during the Korean War to the dynamic political security, economic, educational, and cultural partnerships we enjoy today, the ties between our countries continue to grow stronger and more meaningful. In 2024, we elevated our relations to that of a strategic partnership to pave the way for a more forward-looking engagement. The Philippine Korean Studies Symposium reflects the richness and depth of our ties. It has evolved as an essential platform for dialogue and discovery, allowing scholars, students, and practitioners to explore our interconnected histories, languages, and societies. It stands as a testament to how academic engagement can deepen bilateral relations and create bridges of understanding that extend far beyond our campuses and meeting rooms. I congratulate the UP Korea Research Center, the Department of Linguistics, and our distinguished Korean partners for their tireless efforts in promoting research and collaboration. Your work reinforces the significance of our enduring friendship and the shared future we are shaping together. Congratulations once again on this remarkable 10th anniversary. May this symposium continue to inspire meaningful and impactful exchanges and strengthen the vibrant partnership between the Philippines and Korea. Thank you, kamsahamnida, maraming salamat. Again, this is a message from Ambassador Tizon De Vega. And finally, to give us an overview of today's event, let us welcome the Director of UP Korea Research Center, Dr. Kyung Kim.
안녕하세요. magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Good morning, everyone. The first Philippine Korean Studies Symposium was held in February 2012. I was about to finish my Korea Foundation visiting professorship, and then during that time, Korean studies that I was not very much knowledgeable either. And then I was able to learn from my mentors, colleagues, and also students. When it comes to Korean studies in the Philippines, I think there are many stakeholders and also dimensions, approaches, and challenges. And I would say each time was pretty challenging, but equally interesting, discover something. During the COVID-19 pandemic, PKSS was held online, but we hope to continue its tradition and spirit. And last year, when we resumed in-person PKSS, the scale was quite small, but slowly we tried to invite potential Koreanists. For this year's PKSS, through call for papers, we thankfully selected 23 papers in and outside the Philippines. And we are very thankful that many showed enthusiasm, and also their background really varies. We have MA students, PhD students, and also early career researchers and seasoned experts. We don't limit any disciplines, and we hope this is a training ground for Filipino Koreanists for their future career. It's just that we have 23 papers, but because of some different circumstances, we will have 3 presenters who will join online. And then they also send the video recording. Finally, each year I'm personally thankful that our community is growing. And I hope everyone today will equally witness the development of Korean studies community, and you will be part of us. And our special thanks really go to our invited speakers, Dr. Kyung Kim and Dr. Jong Lee, who will generously share their insights and knowledge. So let us have a fruitful 2 days. 감사합니다. Salamat po.
Thank you so much, Dr. Be. And I hope everyone is ready because we're about to start our first speech. And before that, let us get to know more about our first keynote speaker. Dr. Kim Sung-young is an associate professor at the University of North Korean Studies and the director of the Center for Peace and Sharing at the Korea Sharing Movement. She earned her PhD in sociology from the University of Essex in the UK. Since 2024, she has served as a member of the advisory board for the President of the Parliament. She was also a member of the Peace and Prosperity Division in the Presidential Commission on Policy Planning and a board member at the Ministry of Unification, Republic of Korea, from 2018 to 2021. She has published 2 single-authored books, along with numerous co-authored books and journal articles. Her research interests include North Korean society and culture, North Korean mobility, the sociology of emotion and affect, cultural geography, and cultural studies. Her recent publications focused on North Korean studies, Asian mobility, migration studies, and cultural industry. To deliver her keynote speech titled Gendered Mobility of North Korean Women in the Post-Cold War Era, let us all welcome Dr. Kim Sung-young.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Peng and to invite me for this very prestigious university and having this chance to present my work. Today, I would like to talk about the North Korean migration. The title of my presentation is Gender Mobility of North Korean Women in the Post-Cold War Era. Let me start with the couple of statistics to just illustrate the overview of North Korean arrival in South Korea. My presentation really focusing on the post-Cold War era. So I would say that from probably the late 1990s and 2000 and even up to the recent year. But I guess I have to briefly just introduce some of the trends of North Korean arrival in South Korea. But first of all, during the Cold War era, you could see that the number of North Korean arrivals up to 1980 is less than 1,000. So if you're thinking about the history of the divisions, and North and South Korea we are divided since the Armistice treaties in 1953, and over 45 years, we've got only less than 1,000 North Korean arrivals in South Korea. And also the gender proportion is pretty interesting because it's pretty much the male dominated. So that is kind of the trend of the Cold War era, I would say. But since the 2000, this gender proportion has been rapidly changed. So from the 2001, and the number is skyrocketed and up to the 1,000. And then also the gender proportion, I don't know if you can see that the letters are too small, but the gender proportion is around the 46%. And then from the 2000 up to now, the gender proportion is around 72%. So very much the female-dominated figures that we could find. And the total number of North Korean arrivals in South Korea is approximately 34,314 up to the end of 2024. So these are, the kind of my main point is very much gendered mobilities of North Korean arrivals in South Korea. So before moving into the post-Cold War era, it seems that it's important to talk about the history of the North Korean migrations. I could probably bring in some of the concept of the re-artists talking about interpellation as a part of identity politics. We have to understand that this division system of the Korean Peninsula. And the North Korea and South Korea, soon after the independence from the Japanese colonialism, and two Koreas being divided. And then it led to the Korean War in 1950s, and then this the most severe kind of civil war in the 20th century histories, and North and South Korea we lost over 2 million the life during the Korean War. And soon after the end of the Korean War, the North and South Korea agreed the Armistice Treaty. So Armistice Treaties is meaning that it's not end of the war, right? It's just technically it's meaning that it's two Koreas still at war, right? So the division system is 1945, and South Korean national identity is formed with its antagonistic relationship with North Korea. So if you're thinking about this antagonistic relationship between the two Koreas, North Korean arrivals probably understood as kind of an external enemy, but at the same time, it's the human beings. It exists in between the boundaries of national and non-national. So national identity and ethnic identity for the two Koreas is very complicated because we share the same ethnicities, but in terms of the state level, we having this antagonistic relationship. So the identity issues are very contradictory and also unresolved. So North Korean arrivals to South Korea as other and also the human beings are narrowly and changeably defined and labeled for the sake of the socio-political interest of the South with the purpose of the filling gap in the contradictory or unreserved identities of South Koreans. So let me just briefly summarize during the Cold War time. Of course, this is very long time, so that there were a couple of important points being changed, but just roughly during the Cold War time, the North Korean arrival in South Korea, the number was really small, but they were really treated as a hero and also the symbol of the superiority of the South Korea over the North Korea. And South Korean government and South Korean society called the North Korean arrival as North defective soldier. In Koreans, 귀순용사. 귀순용사. 용사 meaning that is soldier. So defective soldier. And these people were used to construct a strong anti-communist sentiment in South Korea in order to construct a sense of unified national immediately after the Korean War. Okay? And in social policies, the North Korean defective soldiers got same treatment as other national patriots from the colonial and wartime. So they were treated pretty nicely. They got lots of social welfare benefits, and also they got some of the money to settle in South Korea. So from the late 1970s and early 1980s, the North defective soldier and their identities were redefined and placed in the service of ideological purposes so as to sustain the authoritarian regime. So they are interpolated from the archie system as a hero and the guardians of the freedoms in various media representations and receive the appropriate level of support and compensation to perform the role of hero in South Korea. So these are kind of the images of 귀순용사, the North defective soldier. I think this example was very well known. Is the Captain Lee Eun-pyong, and he came to South Korea with his own jet, North Korea's government-owned jet, in 1983. And he was praised as the guardian of the freedoms and also the symbol of the superiority of the South Korea. But later, he worked for the South Korean military and also be a part of the psychological warfare against North Korea. So, if you're thinking about the Cold War time and North and South Korea, the both countries, they are really pursuing the unifications with the forces, and they thought that they're going to make the unification with, one another. And they're really confronting and competing with one another. And this North Korean rivalry, of course, is very important kind of sign and symbol, right, in between the two Koreas, two countries. But that situation has been changed with the arrival of the post-Cold War. So 1989, the collapse of the Berlin Wall. In 1991, the collapse of the Soviet Union. And suddenly this post-Cold War atmosphere is so well implemented and affected to the Korean Peninsula. And suddenly, the South Korean society recognized poor North Korean. I mean, the behind the scene, the North Korea went through such a hard economic conditions. For example, the death of Kim Il-sung affected in the economic condition and political and social condition in North Korea. And they went through the natural disaster in the 1995, 1996, and 1997. So many people actually, they lost their lives because of the famine and economic crisis in North Korea. But in North Korean perspective, they lost their friends, right? Their old friends, the socialist friends, they are all collapsed. The China went through the transitions, right, to the market economy. And the Russia, the Soviet Union is collapsed, and the Eastern Bloc is also collapsed. So they couldn't really get any help from their socialist brotherhood, right, socialist countries. So they went through really, really hard time. And roughly estimated, approximately 3 million North Korean people, they lost their lives because of the confinement. I mean, there are various kinds of the statistics because North Korea never revealed the exact number. But in the South Korean government, they provide the statistic that is like thousands and millions of people they lost their lives during the confinement. So this, during the Cold War time, the North Koreans, they were kind of threat. They're soldier, defective soldier. So soldier with a jet. It's like really, kind of real, kind of the threat for the South Koreans' identities and South Koreans' securities. But during the post-Cold War, and suddenly South Korean society recognizes poor North Korean who work in Russia, working in the very bad working conditions. And then the couple of the North Korean soldiers working in the Russia, Siberia area, they came to South Korea in 1994. So South Korean government, they changed the law to the defective ethnic North Korean protection law in 1993. So this is kind of a shift from the North Korean defective soldier to the defective ethnic North Korean. So even the terminology is being changed, the name is changed. It's not soldier any longer, but it is ethnic North Korean. Kwisun, Dongpo, that is the same ethnic that is in the Korean meaning. And the government body to deal with them is changed from the Ministry of Military to the Ministry of the Health and Society. Okay? And then this humanitarian and human rights discourses really implemented to understand North Korean, North Korean people in South Korea. But these situations brings unexpected side effects. The first one is kind of revitalize the Cold War ideologies. Like, looking at them, they are so poor because of this very authoritarian North Korean regimes. We have to do something about it, etc., etc. So it's like, it's almost like, these very poor North Koreans, South Korean society really see them as a sign of collapsing the North Korean regime in this, around the post-Cold War era. But at the same time, the South Korea going through such a rapid economic, development and also implementing neoliberal social and economic policies around the time, so that the South Korean society start to think that it's all these people. What if we get like more people? Then it's going to be very hard and huge issue for the the welfare system and economic burden. What about social integrations, etc., etc. So it's the South Korean society start to move to the we should accept them as economic migrant rather than the same ethnicities or also defective soldier. They are just kind of become migrants for the South Korean society. And also, the rise of the human rights discourse really treated them as just mere the victim of North Korea, regardless of diverse experiences and social background of each North Korean migrants went through. So these are kind of image of the North Korean woodcutter in Siberia. They came to the South Korea in 1994. They came with a kind of group, and it was a really shocking moment for the South Korean society to actually kind of really witness it. It's like poor and very small and very skinny the North Korean workers in South Korea. And then move to the this time of economic migrants. I would say that this is starting from the 2000 and onwards. And then as I showed that the statistics, the number of North Koreans really skyrocketed from the 2000, and then throughout the whole 2000 and even the beginning of 2010, the number is really rise. And South Korean really treat them as economic migrant. Of course, we changed the law. And then this new law is implemented in the 1997 and entitled Defective North Korean Resident Protections and Settlement Support Law. And new terminology is introduced, defective North Korean residents, and there is argument that is, there is argument that is whether this is like really depoliticized or is it kind of new way of politicizing the neoliberal society in South Korea. A government body to deal with them is that changed from the Ministry of Health and Society to the Ministry of Unification. So now approximately the 63-65% of the budget of Ministry of Unification is allocated for the supporting North Korean people in South Korea. So it's a huge part of the work for the Ministry of Unifications, and of course that is meaning that it's really treat them as a kind of the symbol of unification and also really focusing on the assimilations. Migration studies, we talk about assimilation, acculturations, integration, and all those concepts. But assimilation in a way that is really, really one side, really pressurize them to assimilate to the mainstream society, which is like very neoliberal and very much like competitive society. So the social policy has changed the focusing on self-reliance, of course. So they pressurize them to work. If you work and you get the incentive, so it's like the whole system is being changed. Before that, and during the Cold War time, the North Korean arrival, they get some, enough money to settle in South Korea. But this number is increased so that they change the incentive system so that the North Korean people, they have to work in the official sector for 3 years, and they get a bit of kind of incentive from the government. So this whole system, it shows how the South Korean society see the North Koreans arrivals and North Korean defectors in South Korea. I mean, start to really treat them as economic migrants because they are now become the kind of burden for the welfare system. And I think this comment I found it very interesting because in South Korean society now we are suffering from the low birth rates, right? And we are the lowest in the world, I guess, it's all the OECD country. So the chairman, the former president of the Hanawan is kind of institute to educate once the North Koreans came to South Korea, can educate them for about 3 months and to let them know the South Korean system and law, etc., etc. And the former president of the Hanawan is arguing that there are so many women there, right? The North Koreans are very much gendered, so they are potential and necessary labor. And 80% of North Korean arrivals are 20 and 40 years old, which is really appreciated by the South Korea. Also, 80% of the arrivals are women of childbearing age, so that they might be a hope for the South Korea and its low birth rates. Imagine this kind of ideas is behind to accepting the North Korean people, almost like treat them as like, oh, you guys are really hope for the South Korea, to giving them the more children so that we can deal with this issue of the low birth rates. And really treat them as kind of marriage migrants as well, and then they become migrants. So I just kind of briefly introduced the shift policies and shift of understanding about the North Korean migrants and North Korean defector, starting from the Cold War time and the post-colonial time, but now I would say that perhaps the globalizations, and we are more kind of connected in one another. So my main argument I would like to really deliver that is we need to bring kind of beyond methodological nationalism, right? We're always thinking about, okay, North Korean migrants perhaps just wants to come to South Korea, wants to be part of South Korean society. But I've been conducting my field work in Sino-North Korea borderland, and I've been accumulating my interview data, and I realized that they are very much transnational agency. They are very transnational kind of people. Some of them they decide to move to the States and Europe, and some of them they decide just not to come to South Korea, but settle in China, got married to the Chinese, and also having families in Chinese. So it's so many different routes and trajectories. So that's what I want to really bring in, because South Korean society in academic field is, we only think that it's all North Koreans, they all want to be South Koreans, they want to talk like South Koreans, they want to live like South Koreans, but it's actually not. It's so many different ways to mingle with them. So my main kind of ideas, also arguments in my research and my publications, I would like to really focus on the North Korea's transnational migration, and especially in the post-Cold War era. And so many different factors is actually intermingled behind their mobilities. First of all, during the arduous march, which is economic farming in North Korea from the 1995 to the 2000, arguably. But this North Korea is still very much poor. But in that time was like really peak. They couldn't get any food, so that they had to cross the border. They could, they went to the China to get some food and money and aid. And these are really starting point of illegal migrations. And also that is kind of the origin of undocumented North Korean migrants. And behind that there is existence of the Korean Chinese communities in Sino-North Korea borderland, and especially the Yanbian Korean Autonomous Prefecture. I'm going to show you some of the images of the Yanbian area. And now the North Koreans, they became a kind of economic migrants in China. In recent years, I could find lots of kind of legal economic migrants in China, and offshore workers. The government sent North Koreans to China to work in the big restaurant and the factories, and also all different type of work. And also, how can you really define in their migration? It's like very much feminization of migration, but it's like forced migrations, refugees, it's like political de facto, or the marriage migrations and economic migration. I mean, perhaps all of them, they've got such a diverse features of their migrations. And another point I just want to make that the migration pattern has changed in recent years, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic, and more male than the female in during the 2020 and 2023. So during that time, basically the border is completely closed down, right? So the North Korea, they couldn't move around. So during that time, those people who came to South Korea, they are like diplomats who work in the Western countries, or very few people, they are using their boats, small boats. They are using this like the seaside routes, but the number is just so less. I mean, less than 30 in 2020, 2021, and 2022. So, this whole mobilities and their pattern is slightly changing during the COVID pandemic, but since the 2024, it changed once again. So again, it's pretty much feminized migrations. Okay, let me kind of show some of the images of Nenji and Yanbian, autonomous prefecture. I mean, those areas are very much interested. I'm starting my field work from the beginning of 2010, and I'm really put my effort to go there as often as possible, summer and winter, and kind of meeting North Korean women, undocumented North Korean women, and also meeting some Korean Chinese brokers and the Chinese scholars, and so on and so forth. But the North Korea has this border with China, and that border is actually about 1,400 kilometers long. So it's like really, really massive. And some of the area, the river is just so narrow, so that you can easily cross. Yeah. And Dandong area is actually pretty wide. It's Amnokgang, Sinju in North Korean side, and Dandong in China, the city name called Dandong. That is pretty wide. And then if you go to Dandong, you can find lots of official kind of North Korean official who gets proper visa, and they work there as a kind of business. They work with the Chinese business partner. But if you go to some other area, Yanggangdo and the upper side, and then there are so many kind of routes that people can come and go. Like really, they visited China and then they go back and return to the North Korea, and they spend some time in China and go back to the North Korea, like that. So I think the behind this very much transnational mobility is the population of the Korean Chinese, the Korean Chinese communities. During the colonial time, many Koreans, they had to go to the Chinese, the Manchuria area because of Japanese oppressions. And those people, they just settled in, after the independence. And they made this, the Korean prefecture. But this number is increased just soon after the Korean War because some of them, they returned to the hometown. The most of it is actually from the south. They returned to the hometown, but some of them, they decide to just stay on in the Chinese side. But because of the post-Cold War, and the number is so widespread and actually across Asia, and they are one of the most mobile, group of people, Korean Chinese communities. So they came to South Korea, and the number is approximately 70,000 or 700,000. They live in South Korea. Most of them, they work in the very kind of 3D jobs, pretty poor working conditions, but they are really contributing to the South Korean economies. And some of them, they went to Japan, US, and other cities, other big cities in China. And because of the Korean Chinese communities, when the economy got really worse in North Korea, North Korean people could go to the Chinese side, and then they could speak same languages, and they are sharing the same ethnicities, and same histories, and same culture, and they get really practical help from the Korean Chinese communities. So that was one of the really pulling factor, so that North Korea can survive in late 1990s and beginning of 2000. I don't know whether you come across around that time, there were lots of South Korean missionaries and the Japanese missionaries, and those people who went to this Chinese side tried to rescue the North Korean, poor North Koreans. So that's the part of kind of feminizations of migrations. And since the North Korea, North and South Korea, so too many Koreas, but the South Korea and China, they made the diplomatic relationship in the 1992. So soon after, the Korean Chinese, they migrate to South Korea legally, right? And so it's meaning that there are some spaces in these communities, especially female Korean Chinese. They came to South Korea as a 3D job, so that those poor North Korean women, when they cross the border and then settle in China, they could hide their identity, and also they could get some job. So I would say that there is, in a way, a very interesting example of this global care system, the chain of global care system. So Korean Chinese migration to South Korea provides more spaces for the undocumented North Koreans inside the North Korean borderland, and also this is also very much gendered industries in North Korea as well. Right, and because of socialist system, the North Korea invented so much gendered industry. So the North Korean women, they are just allocated sort of secondary industry, so that when they have the economic problem and crisis, these women, the government, they don't need to really control. I mean, they kind of give up controlling the female labor so that they could easily cross the border. And also the North Korean even have initiated the border crossing to the Sino-North Korea borderland for feeding their families since late 1990s. So I just want to show you some of the images. I think that's very interesting because, since I started to go there is from 2010, and every single year it shows completely different kind of view and different landscape in China. Of course, it's been so rapidly kind of developed and industrialized in that borderland area. But because of this connection with the South Korea and China, or the Korean Chinese communities, you could find lots of kind of signs of South Korean culture and South Korean economic power in this Chinese side. So it's very kind of complex, right? You can find the North Korean people, South Korean people, and South Korean capital, and the Korean Chinese who've been in the South Korea for a long time, but they returned to their homeland. So it's interesting kind of combination of the Korean diaspora, but in China. But that's also a very interesting part. But this is one of the advertisement I could find. That is, it shows that apartment, construction, right? New apartment, new mansion is just built, and you're gonna, sell this apartment. But the brand of that apartment is actually Seoul Bomnan, right? The spring day in Seoul. So Seoul and South Korean has become very interesting or very attractive kind of marketing point for the Chinese people in the South Korea, Chinese people in North Korea. And that is the images. If you go there, you can actually see the North Korea pretty easily. And so I think, sorry, I made this my slide is too the dims, but I don't know this like the white sign. This one, it says that the great Kim Il Sung and Kim Jong Il-ism. Bye bye Kim Il Sung, Kim Jong Il-ism. So it's all this the political propaganda is everywhere.
It's the North.
Yeah.
North Korea.
North Korea, that is the North Korean side. And I took a photo from the Chinese side. I couldn't get the closer to it. Yeah, but that is kind of interesting. And I could see that in every year they are slowly gets better. The economic conditions gets better. And then next slide. And normally whenever I go there, I take the boat trip. And these unknown rivers, and there are a couple of boat trips there, 1 day and a half day. And these people are North Koreans. They work there. They work in the
This one is China side.
Yeah, no, in North Korea. That's the North Korean side. And I took a photo from the boat.
Yes.
From by myself from the Chinese side. But
Too good.
no, it's not.
Okay.
We just took a photo. But that river is actual border. That's the border. So it's if I don't touch the North Korean land, then it's still acceptable because I'm still on the border.
In the border. Oh, okay.
And lots of informal smuggling is happening with this border. Yeah, and they are throwing some of the valuable things and it's informal trading.
There's a trade.
Yeah,
okay.
And the North Koreans and the Chinese people. But these people is North Koreans, perhaps they're just taking a rest and just during in such a hard work. But next one is another one.
Military presence there.
Yeah. You can find some of, but it's not that many. But in each years depends on the political situation. Sometimes we could find lots of military officers around that border, and especially Kim Jong-un regime is meaning that from the 2012, the North Korea has really tightened the border. North Korea really tightened border so that it's become incredibly difficult to actually cross the border in these days for the North Koreans.
Okay.
But before that, before the Kim Jong-un regime, during the nighttime, the people just crossed the border. I think one of the films by the Korean Chinese filmmaker Jang Woo, And this film's title is Chuman River, and it's the story of the North Korean boys just crossed the border to the Chinese side for the football match. Yeah, like really village football match. They just cross the border and then they get some food, so on and so forth. The next one is Hasan, and this is like a really trading town. And I took a photo from, of course, from the Chinese side. And some of the buildings, they've got like really small farms. They grow like vegetables, and also they raise the animals as well, pigs and these kind of things. And then next one. And this one, from these images, I couldn't manage to go to the borderland from the 2020 to the 2023 because of the COVID. But I went there once again the last summer, and I found that this Chinese city has been completely changed. Mm-hmm. That's kind of interesting because the China is also really close to the border. But they managed to make their cities and their views is so modernized. And this is the riverside in Yanji, and all the building has a lights on it, and the people enjoying their very much modern lifestyle with the dog, and and this is kind of the place that is become very much kind of popular for the Chinese younger generations. And since during the pandemic, the Chinese people, they can't visit in South Korea for the tourism. So that the Chinese government really provided some kind of promotion that they could visit Yanji to feel the South Korean popular culture, right? Because of the Korean Chinese communities. So they saw the Korean food, and I got so shocked that it's like all these Chinese tourists from the province or else, and they are very humble, and then they are eating the Korean, South Korean sweet, and they're posting in these images, and they're almost like pretending that they are in South Korea. So it's become also very important kind of site for the very much transnational kind of aspects. This is another area I took a photo from, of course, from the Chinese side, but this area in the North Korea, right? And the river is that wide, so that's why during the winter time people can easily cross the border. And it's changed as well. It changed a lot. And North Korea has really developed their economy during the pandemic. And this is one of the new building they just built. And this is also the Kim Jong-un, the leader of North Korea, is really promoting that this, I built this one and this new apartment for my people. And the next one, I just want to show the images, like really built apartment and nearby the border. And this one is the center of the town, because you can see like a very really, it's really blurry, but this is the image of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-un. So in the government office, government building, it's always the front line is Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-un's portrait on the attached. So this one. And I found that this is very interesting because, this is a viewing tower, so that you can really watch the North Korean side. But foreigners are not allowed to get into that viewing tower. It used to all South Korean tourists. We could just go there to see the North Korea much more clearly. But in these days, it's only for the Chinese people. I think the Chinese government, they are really tightening their whole system and control, so the foreigner cannot really get closer to North Korea. And I heard that this Chinese government was really worried that these foreign YouTubers come to the Chinese side and take a kind of very graphic images of North Korea to revealing the North Korean situations. Then it's become kind of diplomatic issues between the North Korea and China. So it became kind of issues. And this one is just newly built. I couldn't find before the pandemic this building in the North Korean side, a new custom office. So you may have heard, I'm not quite sure, but North and South Korea is now having a bit troubling relationship between the two countries because the North Korea has got closer to Russia in these days. But actually they're preparing for the further economic exchange and economic trade because North Korea built completely new custom in borderland, and then Dandong area is another very massive size of the custom in Chinese side and also in North Korean side. So it's showing that I think they are preparing for the further economic exchange and economic corporations. And sorry, I think I've got too many slides. This one is another bridge from North Korea and to the Russia. So when Kim Jong-un went to see the Putin, and he used in that bridge to take the train to get into the Russia side. Okay, I'm going to skip some of the images. Okay, I'm going to skip all these images. Yeah. Okay, next one. So I've got only 10 minutes, I guess the less than 10 minutes, but I'm going to be very fast. So what I want to really show you that, okay, the two Koreas is still much related to the Cold War ideologies and post-Cold War ideologies, and very bit of a shift, but it has a lots of kind of tension between the two. But those women, North Korean women, being really transnational kind of agencies, they are everywhere. And actually some of them, they spend years in China. And they are doing these mothering practices in China. And Paranas, the Philippine sociologist, and she published her classwork entitled The Servant of the Globalizations, talking about transnational motherings as the organizational reconstitutions of a motherhood that accommodate the temporal and spatial separation forced by migrations. And North Korean women, North Korean mothers, they are doing pretty much similar kind of practices. The migrant mothers in between, they are here and there, but they are using so many different networks, trying to keep up in their connections with their children back home. And then illegal migrants the same, for the example of the North Korean women. So next one. So I'm interested in this illegal, or I would say the undocumented North Korean mothers who's been spent so many years in China. Some of them, they spend over 10 years in China. And some of them, they decide to go back to North Korea, but they return to either China. And so many different kind of experiences. But it's what I want to really bring in the idea that is they are the ones who send the remittances to the North Korea. So according to the data, the North Korean, they keep up, remittances to the North Korea. That is a part of very important economic resources to boost up in North Korean's market, and also economic resources for the marketization in North Korea. And North Korean women in China, they tend to send remittances more often compared to the North Koreans in South Korea, and even necessities and food to North Korea. So North Korean women I interviewed in the borderland, they are saying that, I sent 200 kilograms of kimchi in this summer. I sent 2 tons of clothes to my family. to North Korea. So they are using this, transnational network, Korean-Chinese network, to send the money and send the necessities to the North Korea. And but its North Korean migrant mother in South Korea suffered from the guilty feelings and also economic difficulties. But the sooner or later they stop sending remittances because they can't keep up, because their life in South Korea is far harder. They have to compete in the labor market, and then the living conditions in South Korea is so competitive, so that they became more realistic approach to the motherhood. But it's the North Korean mother in the borderland, they showed a little bit of different kind of perspective. So because of their illegal status, most of them is working in the lead in the care work. I just mentioned about this care work industry, the global chain of the care work. So Korean Chinese women come to South Korea work in the care work. And then their leftover families being cared by undocumented North Korean women. Because undocumented North Korean women is cheap, and also they accept this living condition, like living with them, with a patient, with the elderly, so that, it's such a and also they speak the same languages and same culture. So North Korean women, because they don't have any document, any visa, any legal status, lived in care work is just perfect for them, because they kind of hide themselves from the policemen and from any other neighborhood. So they live there and they keep up in their motherhood practices and very strong ideologies of motherhood. But I think it causes the issue of integrations, because they work as a care worker. They don't have any chance to integrate to the Chinese communities. They're always thinking about their family behind in North Korea. Okay. I don't have much time, so if I have more, but this is my last slide. What I want to say that this North Korean women, they treated the family, even the understanding of family is very much kind of contradictory. They've got this strong moral obligation to support North Korean families back home, but at the same time, they kind of make a new family in China, but they treat this new families very instrumental way, right? They are having these two families at the same time, but it kind of facilitating and using this new family in order to support their family back home, right? So this is kind of the situations of an undocumented migrant mother. I guess this is perhaps not only for the North Korean women, but I guess we get lots of migrant mothers in all over the world. So in that sense, I would say that North Korean women, of course, it has very unique cases, but at the same time share lots of similarities and commonality with the other migrant mothers. So I'm going to stop here, and if you guys have any questions or comments, I would really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kim. And now the floor is open for questions, so we will be... okay, right. First, I'd like to congratulate Professor Kim So-myung for the very interesting and comprehensive discussion on the transnational the migration, especially the transnational migrate. I'm really interested in the fact that at one point you were discussing that with the very low birth rate in South Korea, that it is possible that a source of a new generation of South Koreans would be from the North Korean mothers. My question is, there are two questions. First is, how difficult in terms of cultural integration for a North Korean mother if they are in South Korea? And second, if the route eventually will be through the Chinese land near the borderland,
is there a strong presence of a Korean culture, a South Korean culture and because when you say these are the North Koreans, Chinese, are they actually North Koreans or they tend to marry Chinese? I mean, because I want to know if these if there's a South Korean, there's a Korean community there as well as South Korean community because there are 700,000 of them in South Korea. It would actually be a factor in terms of cultural integration.
Thank you. Social integrations, I guess we have foreign officers in here, so I guess in government perspective is pretty much different from, as an academic, I found that we are having the serious problems of the social integrations, but the issue is that, you know, we think that we've got lots of North Koreans in South Korea, but it's actually not. We've got only just over 30,000. Just over 30,000. And Korean Chinese, we've got 700,000, right? And in terms of the number, it's just so small. But, you know, South Korean public discourses and media representation is so interesting in North Korean migrant because we've got this egotistic Cold War ideology, very cultural level. Egotistic Cold War ideologies. So we have this very antagonistic understanding of North Korea, and you know we see that those people who are actually from North Korea. So we put so much interest in them, but we put into the very dual kind of perspective, dual understanding towards them. I think from my interview data, one a very interesting comment is that they feel so confused. One day they are saying that, the South Koreans, they are so welcomers and they are always saying just nice things. But once something happened in North Korea, let's say launch a missile or the nuclear test or whatever happened, any kind of security issues happen, then suddenly South Koreans change their attitude, saying that what's wrong with your countries? Right? Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-un, because of them we are having a hard time. And almost like really reflecting their feelings toward the North Koreans. So these North Korean arrivals, they don't know how to behave in a way. They have to show that it's very kind of, negative feelings toward North Korea so that they can accept it. So these are kind of big issues. And nowadays in South Korea, we just went through the impeachment, right? And the biggest issue in South Korea, personally, I believe that is political polarizations, right? We have very different political view. And that political view is always constructed with the standard of North Korea, and these days like your attitude towards China, and this rise of hatred of North Korea and this rise of hatred of China, and North Korean arriving thinking about your origin is from North Korea, so that they are having pretty much a hard time. Yeah. So that would be one of my answer. And regarding the borderland, I think it's extremely interesting in that area because if you go to the borderland, especially before the pandemic, the most of Korean Chinese they watch South Korean TV simultaneously, seriously. Like they watch the South Korean the news program, and they get all these information from South Koreans, like drama, music, and then clothes, everything is from South Korea, imported. And then South Korean K-pop is in the street, very widely played. So it's meaning that the North Korean, undocumented North Korean people, they experience South Korean popular culture. So they watch actually South Korean TV in this lived-in care work. So that they start to have this kind of dual feelings once again. Should I go there? oh, look at that, it's just so competitive, is it better to stay in here? And I've got my family in here, and some of them, they got married, and they already have children, and they are starting to calculate that it's better to have Chinese citizenship or South Korean citizenship. So, very much transnational agencies. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Kim, for your presentation. I have two questions. So just in relation to the professor's question, so I was wondering if the North Korean arrivals in South Korea, and you mentioned that most of these are females, the recent arrivals, age 20 to 40. And then, of course, we know that aging and depopulation is a problem in the South. So I was wondering if this will change the discourse, the multiculturalism discourse in South Korea, because when you talk about multicultural families, right, you have a partner who is Korean and the other is not Korean. But in this case, you have a co-ethnic, right, albeit different in ideology. So that's my first question. The second question is migration. So you mentioned in your presentation that of course, most of these North Koreans, they cross the border to China. But China is not only the final destination because you have other destinations. I was wondering if in your research you came across those who went to Japan, considering that Japan has or hosts a large community of North Koreans, but they're not really from the North. Like ideologically they are North Koreans, but yeah, they're pretty much very strong. So those are my questions.
Thank you so much. Population issues, as I mentioned, the number is still very much insignificant. Right? I think that comment, the reason why I choose that comment is the South Korean government and South Korean society really, although in the superficial level, we always say that it's like, they are the symbol of unifications, etc., etc. But I found that South Korean mainstream and the government, in their deep minds, they treat them in a very instrumental way. In order to persuade mainstream South Korean government bring in that idea that, okay, the North Korean women, they are, young age, so that they can contribute at least to something. And so they are bringing that kind of idea to the public. But then the public is saying that the number is just so small, and it's not really, contributing that much. And also, lots of North Koreans, they got married in China already, so that they came to the South Korea with their children, and also with their Chinese husband. And that sort of become more complex kind of understanding to the North Korean women. But I found that the South Korean mainstream, we don't really see these human faces of North Korean migrants. They are women, right? They are migrant mother, and they have this very gender pattern of migration, etc., etc. But we just see them as a symbol of politics, right, in North Korea. So we don't really talk about this women's issue that much. We talk about always, North Korean nuclear powers and, the national security issues. So that is, I think, one of the most kind of difficult points we have to tackle in. And then on the other hand, we just implementing this very rigid discourse of human rights. So if you see that the documentaries and TV program, you could find those programs that those Korean women came and just giving us just like a whipping and saying that it's like being raped, and especially for the Park Yeon-mi, perhaps you can just find from the YouTube, and she's saying that my mother is being raped because of me, and so that has become very stereotypical image of North Korean women. So almost like South Korean popular and the publics, they feel that okay, the political side of North Koreans, the political base of North Koreans, and just human rights victim of North Koreans. But the people I met, in the borderland, and people are mad in South Korea. They've got, I don't know, 30,000 different stories. I mean, some of them is they decide to come to South Korea for the better education. And some of them is even, they enjoy their lives even better than me. And some of them is they got such a good education, so they became a human rights lawyer in the Britain and the UK, in the US. So all different stories, but we got only just two images. I mean, that's something I just want to really bring in to criticize in that issue. And regarding the Japan, the Japanese government, they only allow those North Koreans who could prove that they have the Japanese bloodline. So, if you remember, during the 1960s up to the 1970s, a huge number of the Koreans went to the North Korea. So those North Koreans who's from perhaps Japanese mothers, then, if their relatives there in Japan, and then, give a kind of comments on, oh, this person is actually from the Japanese origin, then they get the visa, they get the permit to live in Japan, but without any economic support. So just imagine as a kind of almost refugee status without the proper economic support to settle in Japan is incredibly difficult. So those people whose perhaps the number, as far as I know, because we don't have any official statistic, but when I just went there to do my research, in 2017, I found there's about 3,000 North Korean factories in Japan. That's the thing. But that 3,000 is scattered all around Japan. Depends on the community they belong to. So it's extremely hard to find all those numbers. And it's the Korean Chinese communities who've got really good relationship with North Korea. They've got very complex view on the North Korean factor, so they kind of avoid really talking with them because they are connection. They still got some support and funding from the North Korean government for their education. So, sure.
Alright, because we have limited time, maybe we can accommodate just one more question.
Good morning. My name is Rochelle. I'm an Asian Studies graduate student. Are there instances when defectors or North Korean migrants are not able to cope in their new countries, including South Korea, that they want to go back to North Korea? And what is the support given to them, if any, specifically by the South Korean government? Thank you.
It's technically impossible. So those North Koreans who came to South Korea, we have a couple of cases. I think less than 30. A couple of years ago, one of the MP asked about that number to the National Security Council in the government, and then that number is 30-something. So some of the North Koreans who failed to settle in South Korea, and then also they have a very homesick or they miss their family back in North Korea, they had to find their own way to get back to North Korea. So perhaps they have to go to China, and they cross the border once again, which is extremely difficult and hard. And another point we may need to remember that is North Korean governments really treat those North Koreans who came to South Korea as a traitor, right? They betray the country. So, there is any guarantee that they are fully accepted by the North Korean government. I think the North Korean government, a couple of cases they use as kind of psychological warfare to South Korea. So some of them, they came to the North Korean TV program saying that South Korean society is just so miserable and we can't live there, they treat us so badly, etc., etc. But this is kind of an issue that even in the globalized world and post-colonial area, post-colonial era, these two Korea, we are doing this very psychological kind of warfare by facilitating transnational agencies.
Again, thank you once again. Let's all give a round of applause to Dr. Kim.